Right now, standing on a coal mountain in Sweden, there's a tree that was already old before humans learned how to write a single word. Its name is Old Tjikko, and it has been alive for 9,550 years. Let that land for a moment. 9,000 years. Not preserved in a museum, not frozen in amber, not buried in the fossil record. Alive, breathing, right now, pulling water from the same mountain soil it first touched when glaciers still covered northern Europe. And here we are, struggling to be patient for a 2-minute microwave timer. Anxious if someone doesn't text back in an hour. Feeling like failures if our lives haven't transformed in 6 months. We measure our existence in deadlines, quarter years, trending cycles. This tree measures existence in ice ages. So today, I want to ask you a question that has genuinely changed the way I think about my own life. What does a 9,550-year-old tree know about time that we have completely forgotten? In 2004, a geographer named Leif Coleman was conducting research in Fulufjallet National Park in central Sweden. He was studying tree lines, how far up the mountain certain species could survive, trying to understand climate patterns across thousands of years. And then he found it, a small Norwegian spruce. Nothing remarkable to look at. Honestly, you could walk right past it. It's about 5 meters tall, slightly bent, weathered. It looks tired. It looks like something the mountain almost forgot. But Coleman took a sample from its root system and sent it for radiocarbon dating. And when the results came back, he didn't believe them. 9,550 years old. That makes Old Tjikko the oldest known single-stem clonal tree on Earth. Its trunk, the part you can see, is only a few hundred years old. But its root system, the hidden architecture beneath the soil, has been alive continuously since approximately 7,550 BC. And this is the first lesson the tree offers us. What keeps you alive is not always the part of you that the world can see. We live in a culture obsessed with the visible, the surface, the profile picture, the job title, the body, the output. But Old Tjikko has survived nearly 10 millennia not because of its trunk. Its trunk has died and regrown dozens, possibly hundreds of times. What has endured is the root system, the part no one sees, the part buried in darkness, wrapped around stone, holding on. Your roots, your values, your emotional depth, the quiet inner work you do that no one applauds. That is what keeps you alive across the long winters of your life. Remember that. Now let's do something together. Let's try to comprehend the span of time this tree has existed. Because our brains genuinely aren't built for this. Psychologists call it temporal discounting. The human mind naturally shrinks the significance of distant time. We can barely feel the weight of a century, let alone 100 centuries. But let's try. When Old Tjikko first sprouted from the frozen Scandinavian soil, the last great ice age had just ended. Massive glaciers, some a mile thick, were retreating northward, carving fjords and valleys. The land was raw, new. The tree took root in a world that was still being born. Mesopotamia didn't exist yet. The wheel hadn't been invented. Writing was still 5,000 years in the future. Humans lived in small nomadic bands. They were painting on cave walls. They were learning, slowly, how to plant seeds. The tree was already growing. The Egyptian pyramids were built around 2,500 BC. By then, Old Tjikko was already 5,000 years old. 5,000 years old, and still just standing there, on the same mountain, in the same soil. The Roman Empire rose, conquered the known world, and crumbled into dust. Old Tjikko didn't notice. The Black Death killed a third of Europe's population. Entire cities went silent. Old Tjikko kept pulling water from the ground. Gutenberg printed the first Bible. Columbus crossed the Atlantic. Shakespeare wrote Hamlet. Newton watched an apple fall. 2 world wars. The atomic bomb. Television. The moon landing. The internet. Smartphones. And the tree is still there. Every empire that has ever called itself eternal is gone. Every person who ever believed they were the center of the world is dust. And a small, crooked tree on a cold Swedish mountain outlasted all of them. Not through power, not through speed, not through dominance, through patience. And this is where it gets personal, Because patience, real patience, radical patience, is perhaps the single most undervalued psychological strength in modern human life. We don't talk about patience anymore. We talk about hustle, optimization, acceleration. We talk about morning routines and 30-day transformations and overnight success. Our entire culture is architectured around the elimination of waiting. Same-day delivery, instant streaming, fast fashion, speed dating. We have engineered a world where patience feels like failure. But here is what psychology actually tells us. In 1972, psychologist Walter Mischel conducted the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment. Children were given a single marshmallow and told if they could wait 15 minutes without eating it, they'd receive two. Simple test. But the longitudinal follow-up studies found something remarkable. The children who were able to wait, who could tolerate the discomfort of delay, went on to have better academic outcomes, healthier relationships, lower rates of addiction, and greater overall life satisfaction. Patience isn't passive. It isn't doing nothing. Patience is the active, deliberate decision to endure the present discomfort because you trust in a longer timeline. And that is what Old Tjikko does every single day. Do you know what a Norwegian spruce does during a Scandinavian winter? Temperatures drop to -30. -40. The soil freezes solid. Sunlight disappears for weeks. There is no growth. There is no photosynthesis. There is no visible progress. The tree simply endures. It slows its metabolism to almost nothing. It pulls its energy inward. It protects its core. And it waits, not days, not weeks, but months. Months of darkness. Months of ice. Months of absolutely nothing happening on the surface. And then spring arrives, and the tree grows again. Not dramatically, not explosively, slowly, quietly, a few millimeters, maybe a centimeter. And it has done this cycle of freezing and thawing, dying back and returning, retreating and growing for 9,550 years. Now think about your own life. Think about the winters you've been through. The seasons where nothing seemed to be working, where the relationship fell apart, where the career stalled, where the depression settled in like frost, and you couldn't see any light, and you thought, maybe I'm done. Maybe nothing is growing anymore. You were not done. You were in winter, and winter is not the absence of life. Winter is life protecting itself. There's another dimension to Old Tjikko's survival that I find deeply moving. This tree is what scientists call a clonal organism. The visible trunk, the part above ground, is relatively young, a few centuries old at most. It dies, it falls, it decays, but the root system beneath sends up a new trunk, a new shoot, a new expression of the same ancient life. The tree has died visibly, over and over and over again, and each time, from the same hidden roots, it has come back. I want you to sit with that image, because this is maybe the most powerful metaphor nature has ever offered the human mind. You have lost things. You have lost versions of yourself. The person you were at 20 is gone. The identity you built around that relationship, gone. The confidence you had before the failure, gone. The trunk fell, but you are still here, because you are not your trunk. You are your roots. You are the accumulation of every hard lesson, every tear you cried in the dark, and then got up the next morning anyway. Every tiny decision to keep going when nothing in the world was telling you to. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth, the phenomenon where people who endure significant suffering don't just return to baseline, they actually develop greater psychological depth, stronger relationships, a richer sense of meaning, and a broader perspective on what matters. You don't grow despite the breaking. You grow because of the breaking. Old Tjikko's trunk has broken 100 times. And every single time the root said again, that is not stubbornness. That is not denial. That is the deepest form of courage in the natural world. So, here's the question I promised at the beginning. What does radical patience actually demand of us? Not the polite patience of waiting in line. Not the gritted teeth patience of enduring a bad meeting. Radical patience, the kind that spans millennia, the kind that survives ice ages. I think it demands three things. First, it demands that you abandon the need to see results immediately. Old Tjikko has no concept of quarterly growth reports. It doesn't measure itself against other trees. It doesn't panic because the spruce on the next mountain is taller. It grows at the rate that its environment allows, and it finds that rate acceptable. We could learn from this. Not every season of your life will be a season of visible growth. Some seasons are for deepening roots, for consolidating, for simply surviving. And that is not wasted time. That is foundational time. Second, it demands surrender to cycles. We want life to be linear. We want to go up and to the right, always progressing, always improving. But nothing in nature moves in a straight line. Everything moves in circles, in spirals, day and night, tides in and out, bloom and decay, growth and rest. You will have winters again. That's not a threat, that's a promise. And it's also a comfort, because if winter always comes, so does spring. And third, radical patience demands that you find meaning in the act of enduring itself, not in the destination, not in the achievement, not in the applause, in the enduring. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, wrote something in Man's Search for Meaning that I think about constantly. He said, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost anyhow." Old Tjikko's why is encoded in its DNA. To live, to continue, to reach for light. It doesn't question this. It doesn't doubt it at 3 a.m. It doesn't scroll through other trees' lives and wonder if it chose the wrong mountain. It simply commits to the process of being alive. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the profound secret hidden inside a 9,550-year-old tree is the simplest truth of all. You don't have to be remarkable. You don't have to be the tallest, the fastest, the most impressive. You just have to keep going. Keep sending out roots. Keep reaching for whatever small patch of light is available to you today. And trust the timeline you cannot see. Right now, as you listen to this, Old Tjikko is standing on its mountain. It's not doing anything spectacular. It's not flowering. It's not reaching some milestone. It is simply continuing a process it began when the world was unrecognizably different. It was alive before the first city, before the first alphabet, before the first ship crossed the first ocean. It has watched the sky change color with volcanic ash. It has felt the ground shake beneath civilizations collapsing a continent away. It has endured more winters than the entire span of recorded human history. And tomorrow morning, if the sun rises and there is moisture in the soil, it will do exactly what it did yesterday. Grow, by a fraction, in silence. There's a kind of heroism in this world that makes no sound, that earns no applause, that fits on no resume and trends on no platform. It is the heroism of continuing, of staying rooted when everything above you is breaking, of trusting that the winter will end, not because someone promised you it would, but because it always has before. You are more resilient than you know. You have survived every single worst day of your life. And whatever winter you are in right now, whatever frozen, dark, seemingly endless season is pressing down on you, your roots are deeper than you think. Let the tree remind you. If this gave you a moment of stillness, if it made you breathe a little slower or think a little differently about the season you're in, I am glad. This is the plant mind. We explore the quiet intelligence of the natural world and what it can teach us about being human. If that resonates with you, stay. Subscribe. Let's grow slowly together. I'll see you in the next one.